more deep breath together. Breathe in and let go. So if you don't know me, I'm Reverend Elisha Christopher. I do use they and them pronouns. My ancestors came to this country from Ireland, Scotland, Austria, and Holland, and really lots of places all over the world. And this morning's talk title that was, prepared something like a year ago was Ripples, the Art of Living Mindfully. And I had a whole nother series of thoughts that I thought I was going to talk about, but I really, participating in Eric's process this week and supporting and being with Catherine has been so powerful and transformational. And I've gotten to know Eric pretty deeply over the last 3+ years. We would sit together and have these conversations. And when I think about this title, Ripples, the Art of Living Mindfully, it immediately brings me to Eric. Because Eric was someone who truly lived mindfully. And I've been thinking over the last couple weeks really, that in my spiritual quest, becoming a minister and taking classes and all the various things that I've studied, much of what I've studied is the great mystics throughout the ages. The people who found the oneness, the people who truly found the love and lived in it and then taught others how to live that way. And what I've realized in the last 7 months specifically since Eric stepped into the hospice process is that I got to know a great mystic. I got to know and watch as this individual found the absolute preciousness that is the gift of life, that is available in every single moment. And I keep going back to a conversation we had a number of months ago where I have to back up about 3 years before that, actually. Because there was a conversation I remember very clearly where Eric and I were talking, and he was speaking about this desire to truly live in the present moment, to fully feel the gratitude of the love of his wife, of his dogs, of the life that he's lived, of just the preciousness of his experience. He wanted to know more deeply the truth of the love of God, of the universe. And then this cancer diagnosis and the metastatic process, and it began to work his body, and he accepted where this was leading. And a couple months ago, we were sitting in their backyard, and we were having this conversation, and a little bird flies by, and he says, "Stop." He goes, "This one comes to visit me every day." And then we'd be talking a little bit more, and then there'd be a butterfly. He says, "Wait a minute. Do you see that? That's life. That's love." He would just be in awe of these beautiful little moments. And then we were talking about the cancer journey that he had been walking through, and he brought me back to that conversation of his deepest prayer for love, for gratitude, for appreciation of life. And he looked at me with absolute clarity and seriousness and said, "This journey, this was the answer to my prayer." I want you to feel that. Because there's a deep, powerful truth there. Because the deepest prayer wasn't make this thing go away. It was a deep, full acceptance that brought him into the absolute preciousness of the present moment. And I know that what happened between Eric and Catherine was such deep, profound waking of the love and the truth and the moments that they shared that I saw in those very last moments there was nothing left unsaid. There was no love unshared. And the acceptance and the peace through which he stepped into that last threshold moment, there was absolutely no hesitation. There was no fear. There was no question about anything being left undone because he fully lived. He fully lived and appreciated that life. And even in the midst of his body being riddled with cancer and going through what was clearly suffering in the last weeks and days, he still maintained that presence. And I want us all to feel that, because Eric was truly a gift, and he still is. And the love and the life lessons and the presence that he saw and reflected back to those of us who knew him, we get to carry that. We get to live into that example. And I think that if we're always looking for the lesson, how is this happening for me? How has this happened for us? What has Eric gifted us? What he taught me was that regardless of circumstance, your life is precious. Regardless of what is overwhelming you, no matter what pain or sickness or disease is happening in your life or in the world, no matter what circumstances are taking place, the truth of you, that deeper piece of you, is untouched. And it's really easy to lose our center when things are difficult, when things are hard, when life is painful. But to remember that there's a center place within us that is unmovable, whether we're aware of it or not. But the more that we touch it, the more that we cultivate it, the more that we reach to it and look for it, the more that that presence becomes who we are and carries us through the most difficult moments in our lives, even until the last breath. And I know that many of us in our own lives looking at the world are concerned about the things that are happening around us, the things that are taking us away from our center, the things we might be afraid of that are overwhelming us, our bodies, our lives, our nation, whatever it is we're overwhelmed by. To remember that there is an unmovable, grounded center place within each one of us that is available. That even in the midst of pain and sickness and chaos, there is a beautiful present moment that's available to you. I watched Eric barely be able to sit up for our conversation and still be in awe of the life that he was living. Could we walk through life like that? Could we walk through these challenging times that all of us are experiencing? Could we begin to walk with that level of presence? To see God in everything, to see the perfection in all that feels broken, to see the wholeness in all of it. You know, I remember in my practitioner studies like 10, 15 years ago, when you're studying to be a practitioner of the science of mind teaching, to hold this truth of wholeness, there's a question on one of the class coursework that we do that says, if you're praying for someone who has cancer and they die, could it be that the healing still happened? And the correct answer to that at the time was, well, yes. And there's a spiritual answer to that. I've been teaching this idea of it's all perfect, whole, and complete, even when it doesn't look that way, for 20 years. And only in the last year or so have I really, truly begun to know on a deep soul level what that means. Many of you watched as I walked through the journey of my friend Firefly, who was in an accident a number of years ago and had a process that led to her transition. Before her accident, her greatest prayer, her project, the thing that she was claiming, was that she was here in this world to teach others about the preciousness that is the gift of life. And then everyone she knew and everyone that they knew watched this family go through this process for 2 years before she made her transition after being in a coma. Every single person she knew tasted that truth of the preciousness that is the gift of life. And so many of us came to this understanding that even though we lost a dear friend who seemed like she died way too young, nothing wrong happened. Because of the ripples of how she lived mindfully. Because of the ripples of Eric's life, I can see the perfection in his experience and how it's changing me, how I'm watching it change Catherine, how I know it's rippling through many of us in this community of how we want to be, of how we want to live, of how we want to show up in the world. And if nothing else, to just believe in the preciousness that is the gift of life. and begin to wake up and walk through the world every single day as if we truly remember that the life we've been given is truly precious. One of the other things I loved about my conversations with Eric is that every time we'd sit together, in the last few minutes before we would pray, he would say, "So," and he'd think about what we talked about. And then he'd pick the one thing or two things out of our hour-long conversation that he could use, that he would work on, that he would think about, that he would practice. And so I want to invite you into that very same sort of mindfulness, to just think about what's one thing that you've heard today so far. From what I've said, from the prayer, from the music. When you come into this place on Sunday morning, if there's one thing that you can walk away with, that you can then begin to practice, to walk with, to be in a different way, and then watch how that thing changes you. Because this thing about spiritual practice, this thing about mindfulness, it's about being on purpose. And if we're just coming in passively and receiving and getting something that feels good and then walk back out and then go back to our regular patterns, we're not changing. But one of the things that Eric taught me is to listen and then choose that one thing that you can really hold. And hold it until it becomes you, until it is how you are. And then begin to listen and learn for the next thing that's calling you to be. And keep following that. When we live mindfully, when we are on purpose, when we are aware of the preciousness that is the gift of life, our presence ripples out. We don't only change ourselves, we change the people around us, and our presence maybe even changes the world. So take a deep breath in. And let's drop into a deeper space of prayer together. And just take another breath. And so as we breathe, as always, I want to remind each one of us that there is something greater than we are that is breathing us. That there is a presence, a life force, a power that is breathing our bodies, beating our hearts, living and breathing as us. And so as we breathe together, I want us to expand into that awareness of the infinite one, the one life, the one power, the one presence that I call God. Some of us might think of it simply as the life of the universe, as consciousness, as the quantum field, as a sea of infinite possibility. However you can conceive of that great oneness, realize and remember that everyone and everything is part of this one ocean that I call God. And that every one of us are drops, ripples, currents within that ocean. That each one of us are the unique individualized ways that the allness of that infinite life is expressing in this world for such a short and precious moment. Each one of us unique, each one of us individualized, but still connected to that great oneness. So let's remember that at the core of who we are, at the very center of our being, each one of us is connected to that infinite life, that one who is never born, that one who will never die, that one who is breathing in, through, and as everyone and everything is breathing through each one of us right now. And it's from that place that I can know and declare that there is only one of us here. And so we breathe a little deeper, bringing our awareness today to the preciousness that is this gift called life. The precious moments we have to appreciate each other, to be in the love, to learn how to love, to learn how to be present, to appreciate the butterflies and the hummingbirds, to appreciate the breeze, to appreciate the love that we share, to appreciate community, to appreciate family. To take a moment And let all that chaos, all the pain, all that swirls around us fall away so that we can just be here in this precious present moment. Where here we are bathing in the love of each other. We allow the ripples of Eric's life to wash through each one of us to remind us of that preciousness. The gift. And so I just speak my gratitude for this beloved community, for this space that we create each and every week that is healing us, that is holding us, that is reminding us of our wholeness, that we have a place to fall apart, to be broken open, and to let the light shine through, so that maybe we begin to walk in the world in a new way, that we become the ripples of change, allowing the love to shine through our eyes. And so breathe again, a little deeper, remembering that you are being breathed, that we are one, we are precious, and we are here. And so for that we are grateful. And it's to this love that I dedicate this moment. And so it is.